Yes, welcome back to the Ratcave. Ratzi for DJKit, and today I'm doing a long overdue video. To be fair, I am comparing the Pioneer DJ DDJ-SB3, which is now discontinued, against the brand new, well, newish Pioneer DJ DDJ-REV1, which when the REV1 came out in January this year, 2022, we sort of all knew that this was going to replace the DDJ-SB3 because that came out in March 2018. So you could say that the DDJ-REV1 has been sort of 4 years in the making to take the SB3's place. And in some ways they are quite similar, but in other ways they are very different. So anyway, let's get into it. Alright then, so both of these controllers, the SB3 and the REV1, are made for Serato. They are promoted to work with Serato DJ Lite, and that is what they come with, but they do both work with Serato DJ Pro, and I have said it 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times more. If you do have a little bit more budget, I would totally recommend upgrading to Serato DJ Pro because it unlocks a whole load more features, effects, the fact that you can record your sets. And in fact, when it comes to these controllers, it actually does make a big difference when it comes to the pad modes, but I'll get onto that in a little bit. But as both of these controllers are promoted to work with Serato DJ Lite, that is what I've got them plugged into today. Anyway, in terms of size and weight, the SB3 is 482mm by 272mm by 58mm, and it weighs 2.1 kilograms. So as you can hopefully see from the overhead camera here, the DDJ-REV1 is slightly wider but actually slightly thinner. So it's 526mm by 255.5 and 59.2, so a little bit higher than the SB3 as well. And it weighs 2.1 kilograms as well. So they weigh the same, but yeah, this one's slightly thinner and longer. So Serato as a DJ software, a lot of people do kind of relate it to being like the scratching DJ software. And with the whole Rev series when it came out, you know, it goes hand in hand with that whole scratch battle vibe. So really good to see that compared to the SB3, the Rev1's jog wheels are slightly bigger. So the jogs on the Rev1 are 154mm, which is the same as the DDJ-SR2, which is more of a mid-range Serato controller from Pioneer DJ. And the jogs on the DDJ-SB3 here are actually 132mm, which is the same size jogs that you get on the Pioneer DJ DDJ-400 controller. So yeah, jog wheels slightly bigger on the Rev1, which is pretty good. As I said, it is, as you can see, built around the whole kind of battle layout. By the way, just want to say at this point, if you want to see my full review, feature review and demo on this DDJ-REV1, the link will be in the comments, in the description, sorry, of this video here. But yeah, the bigger the jog wheels, the better for scratching. Not to say that you can't scratch on this DDJ-SB3 though. And in fact, DJ Jazzy Jeff played a big part in designing both the SB3 and the Rev1. So actually, I do wonder why this kind of battle layout wasn't implemented back in 2018 when this SB3 came out. Anyway, as you can see, both controllers have got the Q and the play buttons, but on the DDJ-REV1, it's a smaller square Q button down here, and it's actually on the opposite sides compared to the SB3, which is more like a turntable turned in battle mode, whereas this on the SB3 here is more like a CDJ layout. Onto the pitch faders now. So the pitch faders on this DDJ-SB3 are 45mm, and the pitch faders on the Rev1 are bigger at 60mm. But of course, the big difference here is the placement of the pitch faders. The faders on this Rev1 are at the top here, as if the layout of this controller, at least the deck sides, are like a turntable placed in battle mode, which is where instead of having a turntable like that with the needle here, you turn them up that way so the needle is this way, and therefore the pitch fader would be at the top. And speaking about the battle mode layout again, the same applies to the performance pads. So the performance pads on the SB3 are here underneath the jog wheel, which is where we are sort of used to seeing them on other controllers and stuff. But the Rev1's performance pads are in the center of the controller here amongst the mixer section. And this is where you find the performance pads on the battle scratch mixers, such as the Pioneer DJ's S series, like the S7, the S11, and of course the legendary old S9. So both controllers have 8 performance pads per channel, so per side here, but the SB3s, as you can see here, are actually quite a bit bigger than the ones on the REV1. Both controllers have 8 pad modes when you're using them with Serato DJ Pro, but when it comes to using these with Serato DJ Lite, you are a little bit more restricted. The SB3 actually only has 4 working pad modes when you're using it with Serato DJ Lite, and they are the ones here on the main button. So hot cue, effects fade, pad scratch, and the sampler. So the beat, jump, roll, slicer, and trans, which are the secondary effects that you access by hitting shift, and the buttons like that, they don't work when you're using this with Serato DJ Lite. But the REV1 here has actually got 6 pad modes which work with Serato DJ Lite. You've got hot cue, auto loop, tracking, and sampler, which are the first pad modes along the top, and then the secondary that you get to by holding shift is beat, jump, roll, trans, and scratch bank. So you actually need Serato DJ Pro to use the beat, jump, and the roll. So they don't work with Serato DJ Lite, but the trans and the scratch bank do. In terms of comparing the pad modes between the SB3 and the REV1, they are pretty similar, but the REV1 comes out on top for me. You've got the new Serato feature called the scratch bank on here, which is such a cool feature, and it's actually quite a high-end feature. So really, really nice to see this on the REV1. And also sort of just going back to the nod of, you know, the Jazzy Jeff input on these and stuff. Jazzy Jeff actually worked on the pad scratch mode on the SB3, which when you press the performance pads down here, it did different scratches which he had programmed in. And you do have a very similar pad mode on here, which is called tracking, but for me, I think that the tracking sort of comes out a little bit better. But yeah, even though these performance pads are actually physically a little bit smaller on the REV1 compared to the SB3, I think the pad modes that you get on here and the fact that you've got extra 2 pad modes with Serato DJ Lite and their placement in the middle like a battle setup, I mean, that's a winner for me over the placement and the modes on the DDJ-SB3. So let's talk about effects now. So both of these controllers have got 3 effects per channel, which you do pick within the software. Worth saying that neither of these controllers have got built-in effects. The SB3's effects buttons are up the top here, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. And that was pretty typical to the sort of placement on all the rest of the Serato controllers, at least from Pioneer DJ, that were made around the time that the SB3 was made. Whereas the REV1's effects, as you can see, are in the mixer section here. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, in the kind of battle mode, that's where you would find it along the Pioneer DJ battle mixers and pretty much any other battle mixer, to be fair. So on both controllers, you can change the effect by hitting shift and number 1 here. So again, shift and number 1, and then shift and 2 and 3 on both the controllers changes the size of the beat of the effect, which makes the effect sound different. Now then, there is a very big difference on how you actually turn the effects on and off or activate the effects on these 2 controllers when you compare them head to head. So on the SB3, you activate the effect by hitting, let's say, effect number 1 there, and then you've got this level knob, which when you turn it all the way round there, that is the effect on full, and when you've got it all the way down there, that's the effect not affecting the mix at all. However, on the REV1 here, you again select the effect by just clicking which one you want on these buttons here, but then you turn it on with this paddle. So you can either lock it on, so as long as that paddle is up, the effect will be in the mix, or you can hit it as like a one-time hit or like a momentary, so you just pull it down like that, and then as you can see, it springs back up again. So that's cool for like a one-time hit of the effect. Again, you know what I'm going to say here about the paddles. This is what is seen across all of the battle mixers in the industry at the moment. Right then, let's take a look at the mixer sections on both of these controllers. So the SB3 here is laid out more like a DJM kind of club mixer, such as the DJM 900 Nexus 2, in that the trim and the filter are all in line here with the 3-band EQ in the mixer section. Whereas on the REV1, the trim and the filter knob is to the right of the EQ here. So again, you've still got a 3-band EQ of high, mid and low, but instead of it being all in a horizontal line like that, you've got the horizontal EQ here and then the trim and the filter just to the right hand side. Still, in this mixer section, you've got your loading knobs and your browsing knob here and your load buttons per channel. And the headphone master cue is in a kind of similar place, with the headphone cue buttons in between the kind of crossfaders. The LED lights are in the middle of the two crossfaders on the SB3, but the LED on the REV1 are just next to the crossfaders, next to the upfaders, sorry, there. Now, although both of these controllers have only got 2 physical channels on the mixer itself, you can actually go 4 decks in the software on the SB3 by hitting either this button here, which takes you from deck 2 to 4, or deck 1 to 3 is up here on the SB3, and then on the REV1 down here, deck 1 to deck 3 is that button there, and then deck 2 to 4 is that button there. That's a pretty cool feature, especially the fact that you can actually do that in Serato DJ Lite, although it can get confusing, so always try and remember which tune you're playing on which channel. The ins and outs are exactly the same on these two controllers. The headphone input is a 3.5mm, which is the smaller headphone jack, and they both have a single master out, which is RCA, and a single USB input that powers the controller. There is a 1/4-inch jack microphone input on both controllers with a little gain knob there for the volume. But speaking of microphones, a really great feature on this DDJ-REV1, which the SB3 doesn't have, is the fact that the mic actually goes through the controller into the Serato DJ software, meaning that you don't need any external equipment to use the DDJ-REV1 to stream, because there is a setting within Serato that you can click which basically makes the audio within the Serato software available to other bits of software on the same computer. So if you're live streaming using something like OBS, you can use the Serato audio direct into OBS, so you can have your microphone plugged into the REV1, be chatting away on your live stream, and it will go into the OBS or the streaming software or whatever. No need for a separate audio interface or even a separate laptop to stream from. It also means as well that, obviously not on Serato DJ Lite because you can't record on Serato DJ Lite, but if you've got Serato DJ Pro, it will record your microphone within the software if you're using it on the REV1. And the thing is, the SB3 doesn't have this because the microphone completely bypasses the software and just goes straight out of the master out. So in terms of the sound cards of both of these controllers head to head, they both have very, very minor differences. The SB3 sound card is a 24-bit 44.1 kilohertz, and the sound card in the REV1 is just slightly better. It's again 24-bit, but it's 48 kilohertz. Frequency range on these controllers are both exactly the same at 20 to 20,000 hertz, and the signal to noise ratio is the same at 103 dB. So that's about it, to be fair. Like, comparing them head to head, I think you can really see the development that happened with the REV1. And as I mentioned earlier, with Jazzy Jeff's input, I don't know if maybe he got sort of poo-pooed and said, no, you know, we can't do a battle mode controller, or whether or not they had this in mind all along. But for this SB3 to come out as to be the kind of scratch controller of the time, you'd think that maybe the pitch faders would have been at the top, or, you know, the jog wheels could have been slightly bigger, or for the whole kind of controller itself to be built in a kind of battle mode style. And that is why, for me, the REV1 is a better controller and a really, really nice upgrade from this SB3, which it has now replaced. So anyway, let me know what you think about these two controllers. I mean, maybe you've got an SB3 and you were sort of looking to maybe go for the REV1 just as a bit of a change. Maybe you fancied a different layout or whatever it is. Maybe, you know, you've got the REV1 and you prefer the SB3 if you've ever played on that, or you used to have an SB3 or whatever. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions. So stick them in the comments and I will try and get back to all of you. Also, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the DJKit YouTube page, and share it to anyone who you think might find it helpful. As always, gang, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, you take care. Peace.